A year in bloom. The bloom year begins just as soon as the judges leave town. In August, we do our own judging with the Barnoldswick in Bloom Awards, and that involves looking round lots and lots of gardens, checking the town scene, who's worthy of an award. And then in September, we present those at a big ceremony, and we have scores of delighted recipients. Also during August, we have our Barnoldswick Beach, and the bloomers get involved with that, helping to put it on, but also decorating the beach with what we call beach boxes. This last August, we had the beach boxes on the shopping frontage, and they featured plants that are commonly found at the seaside, complementing our month-long coastal attraction. In September, we saw the official opening of the new accessible picnic benches at Greenberfield Locks, which was a joint venture with Barnoldswick Town Council and part funded by the People's Postcode Lottery. During that period, we look around the town, see what work we want to do during the coming months of the winter and into the new year. One of the things was that we decided to remove large conifers in the Valley Gardens area. These were planted decades ago and still growing Leylandii, and we wanted to remove some of them and replace them with native trees which would provide better habitat and greater biodiversity. Around the town in early autumn, we've got lots of interest with autumn flowering crocus and other plants which are just coming into their own at that time of year. So we get plenty of year-round interest. We had lots going on in October, and in that month we had plenty of autumn colour with primulas brightening up a bed in Leckcliffe Park, which had been replanted from the town centre. The town square looks magnificent with the colour in the leaves on the trees. October saw the culmination of several years' planning and preparation as planting began on the Sensory Garden scheme. We'd begun work on this many years ago, and there'd been several iterations, some of which we had to cancel because of cost reasons. Hard landscaping had been carried out during spring, and planting had been left until autumn to reduce the need for watering the new plants. A large team took part in the planting, with the design drawn up by a subgroup of the Bloom Group members. We'd involved lots of people with the planning and the preparation for this, including people with physical and sensory impairments. Those consulted who included someone who, as an apprentice, had been involved with laying out the original garden back in the 1960s. Elsewhere in the town, we removed summer bedding, readiness for winter planting and spring bulbs. Dahlias were lifted and carefully dried off for winter storage, and hanging baskets and other greenery was taken for composting, and we planted new spring bulbs in the town square beds. The highlight in November was the official opening of the Sensory Garden, and it was the day before our self-imposed deadline of the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. The opening included as many people as possible who had played a part in its creation. The rest of the month included plenty of activity, with leaves gathered to create leaf moulds, spring bulbs which had been dug up from the seasonal beds early in the year dried off, being planted in various community settings. The day was spent tending the woodland island alongside the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. The work involved replacing whips which hadn't survived the arid conditions in spring. The bloomers also helped the cricket club plant a wild harvest hedge at their ground. The Bloom Group provided a digital display at a celebration of local community groups held in the parish church, with a screen showing all the pictures of work that we'd been carrying out. Bloom members also helped stage Barnoldswick's dramatic switch on Saturday in November, and we did plenty of hands-on activities, including lantern making and helping with the parade around the town and other crafty work. December. School children helped plant fritillaries on the town green. We chose a new area close to the main road so that people could see the fritillaries when they come into bloom. And the area that we've left with the fritillaries has been left for the grass to grow, and will be cut in August when they've seeded. A major clean-up and cutting back was carried out on the Raynell Road car park, The work was done in conjunction with Pendle Council. At the Bloom Group's request, 2 extra litter bins were installed to help reduce the amount of litter dropped at this location. On the same day, the final feature at the Sensory Garden was completed. Glacial boulders were put in position in the central space. A Santa run close to Christmas prompted a Santa litter pick of the route. The Bloom team organised the clean-up action and got neighbouring communities of Kelbrook and Salterford involved too. I think there was over 25 people taking part altogether. Another thing that we did at the same time, we used the van to collect almost 2 tonnes of donated pebbles, which we had to dig up from somebody's dark garden and are now in store awaiting a job for them to be used on. In January, we had plenty of planning meetings where we looked in depth at some of the planting proposals that we were looking to do in the coming season. The quiet month of January was also used to present schools with Barnoldswick in Bloom awards and copies of certificates from Britain in Bloom. The Bloom Group helped collect shopfront Christmas trees. These were taken by the Ribble Rivers Trust to be used for work strengthening riverbanks. The final planting was carried out at the Sensory Garden with the completion of the central feature. Bloom volunteers went fishing when idiots threw a dog bin on top of an iced-up canal. The Bloom Group planted around 40 dog roses on the margin of the town green. The edge of the green is left as a wildlife corridor as set aside. Elsewhere in town, ivy blossomed and there was plenty of winter colour in the town centre canal boat and the 2 tower planters which spend winter on Fernley Avenue. On the town square, snowdrops began peeping out from beneath what had been the base of the 2 Christmas trees during December. Barnoldswick's year-round planting schemes continue to provide plenty of colour during February. Community action days in the month included work on the War Memorial area and to the Wild Harvest Hedge on Fernbank Avenue. Both areas were mulched with well-rotted wood chip provided by Pendle Council. Spring bulbs continued to poke their heads above ground as the month went on. Snowdrops and birch contrasting with black grasses in the Sensory Garden and purple crocus giving a fine display on the town green. The conifers were removed in Valley Gardens and the logs used at Letcliffe Park to edge grassed areas. Over time the logs rot down and provide good habitat for insects. The Bloom Group has adopted the canal through Barnoldswick and was pleased to see one of the access points renewed. The work done, which is very hard landscaping, was carried out with 70% recycled concrete. Elsewhere, new benches were installed at roadside locations. Despite torrential downpours in March, the Bloom Group managed to have a very busy month. Spring flowers reminded us that the season was changing and it was almost time to get along with the gardening. The Bloom Group took part in the Great British Spring Clean. The team supported St Joseph's E-Cool Club and other school children in litter-pick in Victory Park. March also saw the presentation of Pride of Barnoldswick Awards. The awards honour people going the extra mile to help make Barnoldswick a great place. The Town Council organised a food and drink festival. The Bloom Group failed to enter the Best Pie event, but instead ran hands-on workshops for families. Activities including planting cress heads, painting egg cups and creating floral plates from food. April's action got underway with clearing the centre back bed on the town square. Plants removed were potted up or replanted elsewhere. The bed was subsequently double dug. Youngsters helped pot up dahlias which had been kept over winter. Young people also helped at the Memorial Gardens. This year's School Bloom programme began with the Barnoldswick's 4 primary schools sowing seeds into recycled paper pots. The Bloom team dug out grass growing in the wildflower area at the back of the bus stop on Station Road. An appeal was made for mint and chives needed for one of the Bloom schemes. Plenty of pots were provided and subsequently split. Meanwhile, spring planting bloomed on Fernley Avenue, on the town green and in the War Memorial area. A new recruit joined the Bloom team in May as new growth continued to burst from the ground. A tiny top helped remove spring bulbs in the town square. New planting was carried out in the centre back bed and in 2 beds in front of Holy Trinity Church. The planting schemes have been drawn up in detail during the winter months. The plants themselves were bought by Barnoldswick Town Council and planting was carried out by the full Bloom team. During the month, previous projects were looked after. We mulched up the town centre woodland area with well-rotted wood chip, and inspirational drone show lovingly tended the Fernley Avenue plots she has looked after in recent years. The Bloom team weeded the Memorial Gardens and the Sensory Garden on Kelbrook Road. In a dramatic change of pace, Bloom volunteers also helped out at the town's 4-day live music festival at Bands on the Square. The Bloom team concentrated on litter picking and waste management at the popular event. June brings us near to the end of the Bloom year, and it's impossible to fit all of June's activities into this short presentation. The Bloom group continued to carry out a lot of tending in the beds looked after by the volunteers. On top of that, the School Bloom initiative continued with planting out at each school. Bloom volunteers had a market stall with an information display, and they sold ducks for the Valley Gardens duck race. The race was part of the annual fair in the Pocket Park. The Bloom group also organised community planting, a nature trail and plant sales. The event raised £750 for Bloom funds, as well as involving lots and lots of families in the activities. At the Raynell Centre, a major climate crisis display was installed during the month. As well as gardening, the project involved building boulders and mastering production of Hessian banners. Another challenging climate crisis display was installed on the town square. Plenty of pollinators visited, including groups of painted lady butterflies on the seawall. Local quizmaster James Wilson held a quiz in aid of Bloom funds. In everything it does, the Bloom group takes environmental responsibility very seriously through encouraging biodiversity, conserving natural resources, encouraging pollinators and the like. This year we've taken that to another level and we're challenging local people to take the climate crisis very seriously and to act now to prevent catastrophe. We have several seasonal displays which try and underline that point. At the Forester's Bed we have a Cool Our Planet plea with a display that shows hot and cool coloured flowers and the plea literally to cool it rather than continue to stoke global warming. On the town square we've got challenging mini planters which show a series of scenarios that the climate crisis could bring about, and they're not easy things to contemplate, but they'll be on display on the town square throughout the summer, and we hope that that challenges people to think about how they deal with the climate crisis. Our School Bloom project, the honeycomb planters, each primary school have looked at the crisis and picked a theme within that. So, for instance, we've got a dry riverbed, we've got water harvesting, we've got a sedum roof. And all the children involved with that have had to think through all the implications that the crisis will bring about. At the Raynell Centre, we've got a sea wall, a seascape with a kelp forest. The plea above that is SOS, save our seas, no plastic please. We hope that these displays will raise awareness of the climate crisis and urge people to take action to mitigate the impact on future generations. Individually and collectively, it's imperative that we act now to try and avoid the approaching catastrophe.